Dynaudio press release of our new active speakers focus line. Dynaudio is a 45 years old company. We are one of the very few manufacturers in this industry who is actually producing our own drive units. So in Denmark, around 200 people are meeting in every day and start making tweeters, mid-range bass drivers. So you can say when we are making a speaker, we can adjust on over 1,500 parameters and make the different drive units work perfectly together. And when you then give us control over the amplifiers, trust me, a whole other magic opens up. And that will of course be a thing depending on if you are a hi-fi nerd or you just are a sound enthusiast. But this year, if you go back in history, Dynaudio was the first speaker brand that actually was able to do high-res streaming wireless. We had that crown. So we fell asleep at a short period. And now we are back in the industry and want to take back the crown with our new focus area. So welcome to this press event. I will leave you over to my colleague Otto, who will guide you through the features of our new speaker line. But welcome, great to have you all back, great to be here after 3 years. Let's have a blast. Thank you.
All right. I'll try to go through this quickly. I have a lot of stuff to cover. My first point about the new focus is there are many ways today to listen to music. There are thousands of easy ways to listen to music. Not all of them make you actually want to listen to music. That's what we are trying to combine here today with the new focus series. I'm going to walk you through it. So what is focus? I'm going to go through it pretty quickly, so save the questions for the end. I have a lot of ground to cover. Focus is a family of fully active wireless loudspeakers. Probably the most advanced system that you will find anywhere. The family, we have a two-way compact speaker, the Focus 10, Focus 30. Is a compact floor standing speaker, 2.5 way. And then we have the full-size 3-way Focus 50, which we'll be playing on a little bit later. They're available in white, blonde wood, walnut wood, real wood veneers, and high gloss black. So what's the great things about the new Focus speakers? Well, we made a system for everyone. And what do we mean by everyone? Everyone is different. We have a system where simplicity is king. We're trying to make it simple to play your music. We want to combine that with an audiophile grade performance that you would expect from the Dynaudio speakers. We have a very high degree of versatility that I'm going to go through as fast as I can. It's a future-proof system in terms of firmware updates and things we can update inside the hardware platform. Will not dominate your living room. We want to make a speaker that you actually want to put into your room and listen to some music. When we say user-friendly, what do we mean by that? The first time setup is really simple. You have a guided setup with our app. Download the app and follow the guides to set up the speakers. The speakers are pre-paired out of the box, so there's no pairing process involved. Just set them up and start playing. Automatic input sensing, so whichever input comes in the last, it will switch to that, depending on the priority of these sources. So, what is the inputs actually? Of course, streaming today, we can't get around talking about streaming. We have a very advanced streaming system in here. The hardware is based on Stream Unlimited 810X, which is the highest level of streaming chipset that is available on the market. We were not able to find anything with a higher performance than this, both in terms of services it provides and the sound quality. So to realize this in the actual product, we have designed a custom software and the whole package around this chipset to make sure that we have a completely pure signal path from the chipset out to the amplifiers and the speaker drivers. Part of that is reducing sample rate conversions inside the speaker to keep the digital signals untouched right up to the amplifiers actually. Synchronized clock between the speakers so that they're always perfectly in sync, so your stereo imaging will always be perfect. So which services do we provide in a speaker like this? It is of course Room Ready, AirPlay 2, Chromecast, Spotify Connect, Tidal Connect, QPlay for China, UPnP, Bluetooth, we have net radio and podcasts in our app, and it is WISA certified. So let's talk a little bit about WISA. WISA is a system that we use to send the signal from the primary speaker to the client speaker. It runs at 24-bit 96 kilohertz, this wireless connection. It functions in frequencies that are outside the typical Wi-Fi bands. So it is in the 5.2 to 5.8 gigahertz range, but not at the same frequencies as Wi-Fi. So you get less pollution from Wi-Fi. At the same time, you get an extremely low global latency, meaning the lip sync between a video source and the sound is extremely low. 2.6 milliseconds is far below what is noticeable in terms of lip sync. One thing is doing this. At the same time, we want the inter-speaker latency to be as low as possible. So between the two speakers, you have a latency of microseconds, which is also class leading. So if you combine these things, typically you have to choose which one you want to be on a high level. With the WISA system, both of them are very high. We have another trick with WISA. We have a secondary WISA receiver. So we are not only using WISA to connect between these two speakers, we are also open to third-party transmitters. This makes it easy to switch between the internal sources here and the WISA third-party transmitters that are available. A few of those, to mention a few, is Axim Link. This is a small USB transmitter that you can connect to certain LG TVs, Xbox, PC, Mac. I think Hisense is on board with this as well now for some products. And then you can connect directly to the speaker using this. You also have a WISA sound set box that WISA is marketing themselves, which is an HDMI box with audio return that you can then connect to any TV with audio return and send that signal wirelessly to the speakers. It's very easy to switch between them. You don't have to, once the pairing is done once, you just switch between them like any other source. One thing I have to point out is when you see the WISA logo on a product, it doesn't mean that it's open. So we are open, but we don't decide whether other companies make an open system. So there are systems out there in the world that use WISA that will not connect to open speakers like ours. But we want this to be an open system. Okay, physical connections. This is the backplate of the primary speaker, where you will find coax input, an optical input, an analog input with RCA that I want to spend a little time on. We spend a lot of effort on the sound quality of the analog input, because that's increasingly important even in an active speaker. A lot of people want to use wireless sources at a very high level. So we have separate boards for each input, shielded away from the other components to avoid interference, and it's very high quality components inside. So don't underestimate the quality of the analog input. There's a LAN connector to connect to network if you don't want the wireless connection. And there's a coax link between the speakers, so if you connect a coax cable between the speakers, you can run up to 192 kilohertz. There's a subwoofer output as well. We added a trigger output to the subwoofer. So all of our subwoofers has a trigger input. So that means the speakers can now control the subwoofer when you're turning on and off, the subwoofer will follow. There's a USB port, as you'll see. This is service only, and I will get back to doing firmware updates in a bit. We included a remote control in the back. The remote control works via Bluetooth, which means you don't need line of sight, you don't need to point at your speakers. It will always have a connection. There's an easy access to inputs and a few basic controls. And we also added the 3 preset buttons. The numbered buttons you see are preset buttons, so you can add net radio or podcasts as presets on these buttons. So when you come home and want to play music, just press your preset button and your favorite net radio stations will start playing. You don't even have to turn on the speaker first. Very simple to use. With the setup app, like I said, you get the first setup, the guided setup. The internet radio and podcast is done through our app, where you're setting up the presets if you want. You also do firmware updates. If there is a firmware update, it pops up in the app. Accept this, press the button, and everything happens automatically. Updates the primary speaker, and then the primary speaker automatically updates the client over the WISA system. So it's all one push. Of course, works with iOS and Android. There's another trick of its sleeve, which is the speaker is direct live ready. I believe this is the first speaker system to provide this. So some people have been asking for possibilities for room correction or room adaptation systems in our speakers. So this is our solution to this. Dirac is what we consider the market-leading room adaptation platform today. It allows the user to select the frequency range you want to adjust. If you prefer only to adjust the bass frequencies, you can do that. It corrects frequency and time, which not every system is capable of. So basically, you connect to the speakers from inside the Dirac Live app, and the Dirac app controls the speaker completely. Dirac Live is a separate purchase, so you need to buy the license from Dirac and a measurement microphone that you prefer, typically a DSP Unit 1. Basically, go to Dirac.com for more information on Dirac. Then we have a smart grill, which is another funny little trick. If we put on the grill, you will notice that the speaker now knows that the grill is on, or whether it is off, and the app will even follow. So you'll see on the picture of the app. So why do we do that? Well, that's because the grill attenuates the tweeter length, so that affects the frequency response. So you'll get less sound quality if you put on the grill. So in this one, we keep the same frequency response through the tweeter range, even with the grill. So that's a very nice feature that I think we integrated to show some attention to detail on. This is a speaker that's not just easy to use. We took a lot of deep dives into how do we make it sound better in all the small details. I think that's pretty cool. Okay, so that's all well and good, but we need to make it sound better. So let's talk about what's on the inside. First off, the Focus 10 and 30 has a 14 centimeter woofer. This woofer is the best 14 centimeter woofer that we have currently made. It uses traditional Dynaudio technologies such as the MSP, fiberglass voice coil former, Nomex spiders, all of the technologies that we are using in our best drivers today. The Focus 50 is using an 18 centimeter version of essentially the same technology. On the Focus 50, you also have a very, very high quality mid-range driver. So this driver is designed specifically for mid-range use with an underhung voice coil, neodymium magnet. It's a very powerful driver. It's actually 100% the same driver as you will find in the COM 260 if you want to compare quality levels of our speakers. The tweeter is a zero-tar tweeter, which of course has our world-famous 28mm coated soft dome with an inverted surround. And of course it has the Hexis technology, which is an inner dome behind the actual dome that makes sure that we don't get reflected unwanted sound to distort the sound. Large rear chamber, ferrite plus magnet, strong magnet system on this tweeter. So generally, among the best drivers that we are able to make currently is in here. So to make sure we get the most out of such high quality drivers, we made a very, very capable amplifier platform. And this is a very strong point about the speakers that I want to really stress, that one thing is making all the smart things work, but how do we get the proper sound for it? We have to take care of every detail of the sound as we go. So we're using Pascal amplifiers. Pascal is designed in Copenhagen, so we're working very closely with them, one of our Danish partners, to build an amplifier system that is designed specifically for this speaker. So we are already using Pascal amplifiers in our core series of Pro products. So we know their capabilities very well. It's a very high output, very low distortion system, extremely high peak power. It is built for heavy duty studio workloads. It's built for using it all day at high output without any issues. We have 110 watts for the tweeter section of all of the speakers in one channel, and then we have one or two channels of 280 watts for the woofer sections. I'll get back to that a little bit, how that's arranged. Up to 1,000 watt peak power of the woofer channels. So there's plenty to be able to maximize the driver so that the amplifier is never a limitation. We're always able to fully utilize our drivers, no matter what type of music you put into it and for how long. The power supplies in here is not going to be a limitation. Power supply in active speakers is very often actually an issue. Number of watts is fine, but is the power supply actually able to sustain it? That's the question. This one is. We should take a look at the specs, then I can go a little bit into detail about the arrangement of the amplifiers. So the Focus 10, like I said, it's a two-way compact speaker. 110 watts for the tweeter, 280 watts for the woofer. We have a frequency range plus minus 3 dB that starts at 43 Hertz. And then we are adding a second number that we usually don't do, which we are calling, minus 6 dB dynamic. And it's difficult to compare that with anything, but what it basically means is all of these three speakers are sealed boxes, so there's no ports in them. Kind of like we build a sealed subwoofer. So what that allows us to do in the DSP is when you're playing at low volumes, we can extend the bass performance. So that means at everyday volume, where I'm just listening to normal music or watching my TV, you get into subwoofer territory, even from the smallest version. Then of course, if you want to play louder, you need to consider which speaker size you want. The Focus 30 is 280 watts for each woofer, and of course reaches lower in frequencies, and it will also play significantly louder than the Focus 10. Focus 50, that takes a little more explanation. This is again 110 for the woofer, then we have 280 watts for the mid-range, and 280 watts for the two woofers shared. So you might ask, why don't we have one channel for each woofer? And essentially, like I just said, it's because we already have enough power to maximize these woofers. These woofers are more efficient than the small ones. So actually you need more power for the small woofers than you do for the big ones to actually be able to maximize. So that's the reason. Okay, I mentioned the finishes briefly already. High gloss black, high gloss white, real wood walnut, and real wood blonde. Oh, sorry. Pricing. Focus 10 is 5,000 euro per pair. Focus 30, 7,500 euro per pair. And Focus 50, 10,000 euro per pair. And I would like to point out that the Focus 30 is very capable against what we would like to perceive as lifestyle competition speakers, where you may be focusing more on the design than on the actual sound performance. The performance of that is very competitive. And above that, we have a speaker that we don't think is matched anywhere close to this price category, if at all. So, that's all the feature sets. And now it's time to listen a little bit.